The Click R3 podcast is brought to you by the awesome community over on Patreon. To learn more about supporting the show, head over to spawncastnetwork.com.
We kind of touched on this earlier, but it is a separate story here. Sony is apparently, as a rumor, big rumor here, take it with a pinch of salt, Sony is developing two SoCs for PlayStation 6. So this popped up from Kepler L2 on NeoGAF, where this account's been privy to things with hardware relating to PlayStation 5 Pro. I followed them very closely during that initial roadmap where they were in fact correct about PS5 Pro using AMD's next-gen RDNA 4 RT features from their product roadmap. So at least it's kind of worth humoring in the here and now. So in a recent thread, they were discussing what the price might be for PS6, and Kepler chimed in saying that there's two SoCs in development for next gen, and they weren't necessarily sure if that's a Series SX kind of situation or if it is a console plus a handheld variant, but they suspect one of them might be the more affordable option. I just thought this was more of a opening out to the floor here, or maybe explore the conversation a bit further, which is, would the company actually humor kind of a two SKU approach? I'd be inclined to say probably not. They've been pretty adamant about not doing something like that. And maybe it is actually, them pursuing an SoC that can be in a handheld form factor, offering, a local play PlayStation handheld, which would launch next to, say, PlayStation 6.
Yeah, I think you go handheld console. I mean, we saw what happened so far with Microsoft with where they tried to have two chips and one just being weaker with the Series S, and that's provided a bunch of challenges for them throughout the generation. I think Sony, with their strategy of it's the same system, disk drive or not, and then also we'll do a handheld. I think that's the way that they should go about it, and that's probably what we're seeing with these two different SoCs. So I'm just really curious about the handheld and what they've drawn out with AMD. But this is when we hear about the contracts happening and getting things figured out. Intel was supposedly there and they got the boot very quickly, which makes sense considering backwards compatibility. I feel like Sony probably just used Intel as a way to probably get better deal from AMD, and they were never going to go with Intel. But still, that's what I'm envisioning is PS6 handheld of some kind next to it, I guess. And it is weird to think that we'd be waiting until 2028 potentially for Sony's next handheld. But that might be their technology roadmap right now, because as you mentioned, Ryan, they probably don't want to build something the size of like the ROG Ally or the Steam Deck right now. It's a cool device. It is, but it is a large device, and you it when you're holding it. You're like, okay, this handheld is borderline. Like, it's not something you're walking around your pocket. The Vita, if you pick it up now, still kind of feels like it belongs in this generation, like this year. Like it is a very modern looking and feeling device still.
It's an excellent point. It's like the handheld PCs are in a way kind of, unwieldy and goofy. There's a clear distinction between.
I think they'll get better. But we're very much in like that first generation currently. Yeah,
there's like a clear distinction though between portable PCs and, say, a Nintendo Switch. Yeah. So as a platform holder, Sony would want to make this thing look, sexy and nice and semi-thin. And so maybe by the time, they're ready to actually get that into a portable form factor, we can return to local play on a handheld, since that is the still problem with the Portal. Yeah. Colin, I know you would be probably very excited for like reliable local play.
That'd be sick, man. I mean, my theory it's pretty obvious, but it's like Sony's play is engagement now. It's about like keeping people going where they are. And it's, as I was saying earlier, I think Portal was kind of like a Hail Mary to see just how it would go. Cheap components put together quickly. They can't make enough of them. People are really interested in it because I think people were really surprised. I've put it into words where I was like, it has no business being this good. Like, that's how good I think it is. And I just think that the handheld approach makes sense specifically from the perspective of just keeping people. And Sony has shown a really nice eye, I think, towards being much more flexible in recent years with just going with the flow of where people, how people want to play, where people want to play. Been really open to courting free-to-play games, big games. When you think about like MiHoYo games and all of that kind of stuff, like they are happy to just have people come and spend a little bit of money, but lots of time and just engage them. And this is why I think the games as a service play is so huge for them, because I think that they want to own the whole vertical monopoly of that if they can, as opposed to relying on others for the content. And so I just think that the handheld is necessary, because I just think it's, like I said earlier in our conversation, it's the marriage of like the Switch's ubiquity and the proven power of your Steam Deck and all of those different handheld PCs now. I think it shows Sony like it's possible. And if anything, it might even be mandatory if you want to succeed next generation, considering the way things are going. So I'll be excited, but like I said earlier, it makes me want to cry that we're already talking about this. And it is my sincere hope that they put this off as long as possible. But maybe they'll feel a little heat. It looks like Xbox is going to try to go first. I think that's fairly obvious, and I'll be interested to see if they feel any heat from that. So remains to be seen.
That's a good point. The timelines might be a little blurred here if they do get out the gate by 2026, which that seems really fucking close. We're talking about not wanting next gen to kick off. Like I don't know if I'm ready for like a new Xbox in 2 something years, son. That's soon.
You have to. I think Switch has shown, well, Nintendo generally, I think, but not always. I think maybe because the Wii U was off cycle and it didn't really prove it. But Switch proved that like the cycles aren't as we always accepted that they were, and that other players that tried to start things early, it didn't work out great for them. Whether it was Dreamcast kind of starting things early when people were waiting for PS2 and so on and so forth. So I wonder, and of course, Wii U kind of trying to reset things and really failing and falling flat on its face. So I just wonder if it's Microsoft's only play at this point is to kind of go first. And it did work for them with Xbox 360. I think that was a huge advantage. Although, as I reported at IGN a long time ago, PS3 was supposed to come out that year too. It just didn't. I mean, it got delayed and fucked up behind the scenes. But I think that they benefited from that. So I would love to see Xbox go first, just because it would be interesting to see these multiple generations of consoles that are kind of not equivalent. Your Switch 2, your PS5, and then your next gen Xbox all kind of existing amongst each other, where none of them are really obviously like there's no real advantage to being more powerful, or no real advantage to being less powerful. It's really just about your accessibility.
Yep. Good point. Solid point. That's what I think about a lot, especially with this environment where there's so many different ways to actually play and engage with games nowadays. That friction's just, there's so many barriers getting brought down now.